So today we're looking at the detachable teach pendant with display for our eVmP pumps, otherwise known as a TSI. First thing you do when you get your pump is you're going to hook it up. This 12-pin connection right here is for power and I/O. This 8-pin connection right here is for our RS4085 and our touchscreen HMI. We'll first hook up the power. So that's all hooked up, and then next we'll hook up the HMI. And now the pump is ready to go. So we'll start with just the run function. This green arrow here will run whatever program or recipe you have set here to the shot function. Currently it's set on its single shot function, but if you press that, it will change to the infinity symbol, which is the continuous function. If you press the run button again, it will run continuously until you either press the infinity button and set it back to 1, or you can also press the stop button here and it will stop it as well. The stop button will stop the pump whether it's in continuous mode or if it's in the middle of a program. Next we'll move on to changing the volume. To change the volume, just press the volume button and you can enter in whatever volume you want. This is a 3/8 pump head, so its max is going to be 0.72 milliliters. And then once you set a volume over here, the equal sign in the middle will flash, indicating that you need to set it. So we'll hit set, and the pump will adjust. And as you see, the current volume is changed to the volume you put in over here. So if you want to change it back to 0, just click volume again and set to 0. And then the set button flashes again. We'll click that, and it went back to 0. If you want to change how many revolutions the pump will do in one single run cycle, you can click the revolutions button. Say you wanted it to run 5 times in a single run. We'll hit enter there, and we'll hit run, and the pump does 5 revolutions. So we'll set that back to 1, and then run it again, and it does 1 revolution. The RPMs over here, you can change these to be however high you want. Our stepper motors will do roughly about 800 RPMs at its max. These servo motors will do up to 1500. Say you wanted to set it to 500. And then you can run the pump. If you want to adjust the RPM with these little plus and minus symbols, you can do that as well. You can also adjust the pump while it is running using these little RPM plus and minus symbols as well. The direction here will determine which way the fluid is flowing through the pump head. Currently it's set to pump from bottom to top, as you can see by the arrow indicating here. You can also set it to run top to bottom. If you have a micro pump that has a horizontal port on it, the up arrow will indicate that it's pumping from right to left. If it's pointing down, it will pump from left to right. Next we have our max volume button. You hit that, the pump will automatically adjust to whatever the max volume of the pump is. If you want it to go back to 0 or whatever volume you had input before, you just hit the flashing max button and it will take you back. The program button over here, you tap that, you can enter any number up to 50 programs. So we'll go to program 1, which I've pre-programmed earlier. And as you can see, the volume and the RPM has changed. So we'll click the set button to set it to the volume, or you can hit this little plus and minus button, and that will move you through the programs as well. Then we have the program linking button right here. First in your top left, you have pullback. This indicates the percentage of 1 revolution the pump will run in reverse after a single loop cycle to pull fluid back into the supply line. Next to that, you have the pullback RPM. This indicates how fast that pullback function will pull the fluid back into the line. Under that, we have the linked program. This indicates the next program that will run after the current program finishes its cycle.
A program can be linked to itself if the user wants to set a delay between dispenses or if they want to have the program loop multiple times. Under that, we have link time delay. This allows the user to set a delay between the programs or between dispenses if the program is linked to itself. Next, we have loop cycles. This allows the user to set how many times a program will run. Then we have the end cycle pullback. This indicates the percentage of one revolution the pump will run in reverse after all of the loop cycles have finished. Then we have end cycle pullback RPM. This indicates how fast the end cycle pullback function will pull the fluid back into the line after all of the cycles have finished. Then we have the end cycle pullback delay. This allows the user to set a time delay between when all the loop cycles finish and when the end cycle pullback will begin.
And we'll go into this second screen here by pressing this button. This second menu will allow you to set your acceleration and deceleration of the dispense. This button will show you the approximate time that the run cycle will take. It can change based on your RPMs. So we have another RPM button here. We'll change this just to give an example. So the approximate time went to 0, but if you press this button, it will recalculate the run cycle time. As you can see, it's gone down to 178 milliseconds, down from 230. We'll set that back. So here we have the percentage of motor current. This is the amount of maximum power the pump will use to turn the motor. We recommend you leave this at 80%. Any higher can cause the motor to overheat and will eventually degrade the pump over time. So here we have the initial RPM. This is at the beginning of the dispense. This is how fast it's going to reach the actual RPM right here. And then the final RPM is at the end of the dispense. So here we have the fine adjust button. If the pump volume is off by just a little bit, you can come in here and you can adjust it using these plus and minus buttons. And you can adjust it up or down, and that should get you closer to your desired volume. This will not save though, so if anytime you adjust the pump, it will go back to 0, and you'll have to re-enter the fine adjust. Next, we'll look at the pump number. Here you can see we only have the one pump connected. If we had more, it would populate down all these numbers. If you have more connected and you want to talk to all of the pumps at once, you can simply click this All Pumps button, and it will allow you to communicate with up to 32 pumps all at once. But since we just have the one, we'll go back to here. You can switch to other pumps using the plus and minus buttons here. If I had another pump connected, all of these fields would populate, but we just have the one, so back to this one. We also have our program name here. You can set this to whatever you want. In this case, we're doing 100 microliter shots, so I'm going to program 100 microliter in here, and hit enter, and we'll change the program name. Next, we'll move on to the settings button here. This screen will allow you to change the bore size of your pump head, and just come in here and set it. Then just to make sure it's set, you can hit the max button. And as you can see, it's changed to 0.32 from 0.72, which reflects the change from a 3/8 head to a 1/4 inch. So we'll move on to the checklist menu. Over here we have the set pump number. If we click that, you'll see that pump number screen pop back up. You want to change the pump number from say 1 to 2. Click 2 there, and then hit the send command button. And then on the back of the pump, there's a tiny little button next to the red LED. If you click that, it will populate the pump into pump number 2. And then if you want to set it back to pump number 1, click 1, click the send command button, and press that little button again. Now back to the checklist menu. Next we have the ready input.
When enabled, this function will not allow the pump to dispense or adjust unless the pump receives a ready signal from a PLC or another outside source.
We have our Ethernet settings. You click that, If it was connected, it would self-populate its IP address, its netmax, and its gateway, and it will be able to be controlled over Wi-Fi and Ethernet using our Ethernet IP commands. So we'll go back to the checklist. Here you can change the pin. We'll change the pin. Since the old pin was blank, just enter. And the new pin will do 1, 2, 3, 4. And it'll make you re-enter it. And it'll say pin changed. And you should be able to lock the pump using that new pin that was just set. And this should stop anybody from changing programs or doing volume changes, but it will be able to run the pump. So if you want to set a recipe and make sure nobody changes it, that's the way to do it. Finally, in here we have the touchscreen calibration. If for whatever reason the touchscreen starts acting funny or isn't taking inputs, this is the first step. It's going to populate these little targets. You're going to want to touch the center of these as close as you can. And then the pump screen is calibrated. Finally, we have our info button here. So it'll tell you the serial number of the pump, as well as the firmware rev, and the firmware rev of the TSI, or detachable teach pendant. We hope this video has been helpful. If you have any further questions, feel free to visit us on the web at zaxisinc.com, or you can send us an email at pumpservice@zaxisinc.com.